At the beginning of the story, we see a man named Dan, who was sitting comfortably on the sofa with his daughter, Marie, watching a football match. But suddenly, something strange started happening on the TV. The match stopped in the middle because now, on the field, a glowing cloud of smoke and lightning was visible, and suddenly many soldiers came out of it. They were led by a woman whose name was Looney Hart. She told everyone that she had come from the year 2051, i.e. the future. It turns out that a lion species named white spikes has attacked the Earth, and in the year 2051, they have destroyed most of the people on Earth. These soldiers have come to request the people to go with them into the future, and be a part of this fight in the next 12 months. Countries around the world sent as many soldiers as they could, but the authorities of the future were demanding more people. Out of all the people who went to fight, only a quarter of the soldiers returned alive. It was found that when there was a shortage of trained soldiers, the government started recruiting civilians as well. Dan is a teacher, and while he was teaching his class, a message suddenly came on his phone that he, too, had been selected to be sent to war. Later, he went to his nearest military office to confirm this. Dan was told that, anyway, he was going to die in 7 years, so he was fit to be sent to war. Dan was shocked to hear this, and he started asking strange questions, but the officers did not give any direct answer to any of his questions. Instead of listening to him, they put a device in his hand, which would track him, and in the future, they would be able to talk to him with the help of this. That evening, Dan met with his wife, Amy, and told her everything. She became upset and said that they should run away from the government, but Dan told her that he already had a tracker in his hand. Now he could run away wherever he wanted. The authorities would find him wherever he went. "They can go back in time, darling. They will find us." With no other way out, Amy suggested that Dan talk to his father, James. Maybe they could get this tracker out. James is a great engineer and doesn't trust the government at all, so he definitely won't inform the police. It turns out that Dan's father left his family after returning from the Vietnam War. He had gone because, in the fight, he was devastated by the loss of many close friends. However, Dan had a lot of hatred for his father. When he went home, he found his daughter playing in the garden. He tried to lie that he was going on a trip, but Mary immediately realized that her father had been selected to go to war. Dan promised her that he would come back alive, and then lovingly embraced her. A day later, Dan and the other new recruits were given weapons and first aid. Training was given so that Dan also met environmental scientist Charlie, and ex-Navy SEAL Dorian to increase his chances of survival. On one hand, most of the people wanted to avoid going into this war. Dorian was going to go into this war for the 3rd time. Later, he was told that white spikes disappear every 6 days for a few days to rest. This is the time when new soldiers are sent to the future, and those already performing their duties are recalled. That evening, when the new recruits were talking, an alarm suddenly started ringing. A soldier from the year 2051 started shouting, "This is not a part of your practice. The aliens have really come." Hearing this, everyone quickly ran towards the portal room. Dan started running and asked Robbie Hart what was going on, who replied in a serious voice that aliens had attacked the last scientific research center of the year 2051 and that if he could save this place, if they succeeded in destroying it, then humans would definitely lose this war. After a few minutes, they entered the portal room, and soon, one after another, people started getting pulled into the portal. Suddenly, there was an error in the address of the landing location, due to which Dan and others were teleported into the sky, 100 feet above the ground, causing many to fall down and die. Luckily, Dan, Charlie, and Dorian fell into the swimming pool on the roof of a very tall building, so they did not get any significant injuries. Dan came out of the water as quickly as possible and started checking his gun. Then he went to the edge of the roof and looked at the city of Miami, which was now completely ruined. He started investigating the mistake made in the military time jump when Chief Command contacted the survivors and told Dan that they would soon detonate bombs in this entire area because there were too many white spikes there, and Dan would become the leader of the survivors. They had to rescue the trapped scientist. He confirmed the mission and immediately started gathering all the survivors on the roof. Soon, the group reached the building where the scientists were supposed to be. They entered very carefully, and Chief Command asked them to be alert because white spikes could smell the smell of blood from a distance. They soon found the team of scientists, but unfortunately, they were all killed. After this, the soldiers were instructed to bring hard drives and biosamples from the lab. An order was given so that they could gather all the information available from these scientists because they were working on ways to stop these aliens. Soon, Dan found the samples, but then he came to know that the fighter jets could destroy everything in 6 minutes. Dan and his team were about to drop a bomb in the area and quickly ran out of the building, reaching the emergency stairs. But then several white spikes came from above and attacked them. Dan tried to handle one of them alone, but in the end, Dorian came to help him. Dorian had fought with them before, and he told Dan that shooting would only affect the neck and stomach. Otherwise, any weapon would have no effect on them. This is an important piece of information they should not have been told in training. Are these people Bedouins? Dan thought. So many people get killed without any reason. When only 3 minutes were left in the airstrike, Chief Command sent rescue vehicles for them. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief after seeing the military vehicles and began to think. It seemed that they were safe for some time, but suddenly 3 white spikes came and destroyed everyone. Many team members were killed while trying to escape. After some time, the airstrike started, and now only 7 people were left in their team. Trying to save themselves, 2 soldiers sacrificed themselves to stop the white spikes, allowing the remaining 5 to manage to escape in time. A day later, Dan found Charlie near a military base when he woke up. They soon met with Dorian, where they learned that the 3 of them were the only survivors. Dan asked Dorian about the white claw he used to wear around his neck. Dorian revealed that he was diagnosed with cancer 6 months later. He realized that he had to die when he was first selected to fight. He came to this war again and again because he would rather die here saving humanity than in a hospital bed. Well, soon Dan would be made chief. The head of Chief K called him to meet. As the head of Chief K, he was very happy to see his daughter. His little daughter had now become Colonel Mary Foster, who told him that there was a special reason behind calling him here. As for what this special mission was that she wanted to complete with his help, she would tell him only when the time came. After this, both of them went to a military tent where Murray told him that she had made a poisonous injection, but so far, it only affected male white spikes. Now she wanted Dan to help her capture a female alien so she could create a poison that could kill both males and females. While flying in a helicopter to the white spike nest, Murray explained that these aliens suddenly came to Earth one day. They emerged from northern Russia and spread across the world, but no one found any spaceship crash site or any trace of their arrival. Changing the subject, Dan asked her what had happened to his family between 2022 and 2051, but Murray said that it was better not to talk about it. After some time, they reached a nest where several soldiers were trying to lock a female white spike in a cage. Everything seemed fine until the aliens attacked to save the female. Dan, who was in the helicopter, noticed a group of male white spikes heading towards the nest. He and Murray quickly descended and locked the female in the cage. As the helicopter flew away with the cage, a flock of male white spikes arrived, forcing the father and daughter to flee in a military jeep. They continued to make their way with the machine gun mounted on the car. After some time, they reached a beach. Murray was very angry because Dan did not care about his life at all in this fight. She said that she would not do anything, wanting to keep Dan alive by doing this. She angrily started telling him what had happened to his family over the years, after which she revealed that, in fact, after returning from the war, he became very sad with life. After getting a divorce from his wife, Amy, he started living alone, and then, after some time, on Mary Kay's 16th birthday, he got a call that changed his life completely. In fact, Dan had become a victim of an accident in which he died. Hearing this, Dan got a huge shock. He couldn't believe that he turned out to be exactly like his father. In the end, he too left his family. After this, both of them went back to the military base, where they immediately began working on the medicine to kill these aliens. They had to conduct thousands of chemical tests to create a toxin that could kill females. And Murray wanted to do it as soon as possible because there were only 21 hours left for Dan to return the next morning. Dan asked Murray how, even if he managed to create the poison, so many aliens would be killed. Murray replied that Dan would have to go back in time and create these toxins in large quantities so that they could fight the war. Both of them were still talking when the computer gave a signal that the bond was 100%, which meant they now had the female toxin ready. Unfortunately, in the meantime, the female white spike had also woken up. As soon as she got up, she suddenly started screaming loudly, after which, within a few seconds, white spikes started entering the entire base. While on the other hand, Dan and Murray started running towards the helipad at full speed with their guns. On the way, they encountered many monsters present in front of them. Meanwhile, they heard a voice from a speaker that the time jumpers had only 3 minutes left. Upon hearing this, Murray urged Dan to run away with the poison in his hand, but suddenly a monster appeared in front of him. The monster came, but before it could attack, the ground below them broke due to its heavy weight. As soon as the alien and Murray started falling down, Dan also jumped to save his daughter, but he came back in the middle. When he regained consciousness, he was in 2022, still holding the bottle of poison in his hand. He explained to Robbie Hart that they had to make as much of this poison as possible and send it to the future as soon as possible, on which Robbie Hart informed him that the time portal had been completely destroyed from the other side and now no one could travel to the future. Hearing this, Dan silently returned home, disappointed. As soon as he reached home, he first hugged his daughter and then, that night, he told Amy about his conversation with Murray from the future and also explained that no one knew where the white spikes came from because they just suddenly appeared in 2048. To this, Amy suggested that perhaps those creatures might have come from space years ago, and after hearing this, an idea came to Dan's mind. Afterward, he met Dorian in a bar where, while talking about the future, both of them decided that they would like to prevent this war from happening. They both went to Charlie with the white spike claw present in Dorian's possession. Actually, Charlie was an expert in environmental science, and after analyzing the claw, he told them that it had the volcanic effect of China on it. This statement surprised both of them because white spikes were first seen in northern Russia, which was a fair distance away from China. Hearing this, Dan remembered a boy from his class, Martin, who had mentioned that a huge volcano erupted 1,000 years ago. The explosion was so significant that its remains could even be found in the glaciers of northern Russia. After hearing this, they realized that the white spikes had definitely arrived thousands of years ago, and had been sleeping under the cold ice sheet of Rhea. After applying his mind a little, Dan understood that due to global warming, that ice would melt by the year 208, and this could not be a coincidence. As soon as he got the information that the white spikes had carried out their first attack in the same year, he asked the US government for funding for this mission, but the government flatly refused because relations between the US and Russia were not good. If Dan tried to enter the country by plane, he could get arrested. With no other way, Dan reached out to his father, James, who had unregistered airplanes. James immediately agreed to this mission, and Robbie Hart was also there on the spot. After several hours of flight, they finally reached a place where all electronic devices stopped working. Using several explosives, they made a hole in the ground and very carefully entered the hole, where they found a frozen alien spacecraft. After cutting through the ice, they entered inside the spaceship, while Charlie and James stayed outside to stop anyone if he tried to escape. After investigating for a while, they reached the cockpit, where they figured out that this flying saucer had crashed here. They calculated that the aliens had no intention of coming to Earth. After this, they reached another room where the real white spikes were locked in biopods. Seeing this, they all understood that the white spikes had been bioengineered by some intelligent alien race, meaning that they had created them just like humans have created different dog breeds through selective breeding. In almost the same way, perhaps these aliens would have used the white spikes to capture other planets. After this, they quickly started injecting poisonous substances into the pods, which, as soon as they were injected, made the white spikes writhe in pain, clearly indicating that their poison was completely effective. However, as their screams echoed, some other aliens who had not yet been injected woke up, broke the pods, and attacked the team. Dan and his companions immediately started killing the aliens, but still, some of them managed to escape. In this situation, Dorian said that they had no choice but to blow up the entire spaceship. All these good ideas came too late. They could have blown up the entire spaceship, but unfortunately, before they could even get out of the ship, they were attacked, and only Dan, Charlie, and James managed to escape before the bomb was activated. All the aliens present on the ship were dead, but a red-bellied female was still alive. It was crucial to eliminate this female because she could give birth to more children. To catch her, Dan made a snowman and dressed it in a jacket so that it would look like a human. Exactly as per his plan, the Queen White Spike got trapped in this trap. As soon as she came close to the snowman, Dan and James fired bullets at her and forced her to one end of the mountain. They aimed to push her into the ditch, but she was not that weak, and she immediately started attacking them, causing both of them to get separated. After this, the alien attacked Dan by throwing a spike at him, but Dan used the same spike to attack the alien. At the same time, James also hit her with an axe in her eye. Now the Queen of the Aliens was blind and was thrashing around in anger. This time, Dan took advantage of the opportunity and injected poison into her leg. But the alien was not so stupid. She removed her leg just like a lizard drops its tail so that the poison couldn't spread in her body. At the same time, James raised his injured hand and offered it to the alien, making it chase him. But Dan did not want to see his father die like that. That is why he jumped on the alien, cutting its neck with Dorian's claw. He then pushed poison into her mouth before pushing her down from the mountain. After falling from such height, she became a part of White Spike. The next day, news of the explosions in Russia spread all over the world, in which many aliens were killed. Now the government claimed full credit for the mission. Meanwhile, Dan returned home and met his family, forgetting all the bitterness and starting to live happily with his father. If you liked the video, please like it and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.